Alrighty, guys, welcome to the third episode of Meet the Artist. I have with me today Mike McDonald from Ember Studios to my right. Then I also have with me Mr. Corey Sakamoto from I don't know what studio, but we're going to just say Star Wars a while back. And we also have Ryan Dupre joining us this evening spontaneously. So glad you guys could come out. Thank you for coming out and doing a little interview with me. For those of you guys who haven't seen the other episodes, basically just want to ask these guys some questions. These are all artists from either Meerkat, Periscope, or Blab, so they're all streamers, and just kind of find out how they use the software and sort of what their place in the art world, so to say, is. And just want to, start by asking you guys all a little bit, and start with Corey over here, so try to get him through here as quickly as possible. He's not feeling too well. But what was sort of the initial moment in your life? Like, was it a little sketch pad at McDonald's, or what was it that really got you kind of interested in wanting to draw and then later translate that into graphic design?
I went to school, and this is a really easy question for me to answer. I went to school with a kid who him and I were good friends, and he sat next to me. And he was that kid. Everybody went to school with one of these kids. He was that only kid in the classroom that could draw really well. And every time you'd have those projects where you'd have to draw a picture of a wagon and all this other crap. Like, his stuff was always amazing, and mine was like super ghetto every time. And and that is really how I kind of just got into it, because I started taking drawing lessons because of him and stuff like that. It just made me want to learn how to draw, because it was just, that talent was so cool. I mean, just to me as the seventh and eighth grade, and that was pretty much what threw me into it all.
Was it more like a competitive aspect then, or was it more like I want to learn what this kid knows?
Yeah, it was. Well, at first it was competitive because he was one of my best friends, and then so of course amongst friends you just even at that age you kind of you guys poke at each other, and but then after a while it just turned into something I just wanted to do. I really liked it.
Awesome.
So
how about you, Mike?
I'm not sure where I got into art and stuff. I know I as a kid I was always drawing and stuff like that, but I guess graphic design specifically, I kind of stumbled into it, and I didn't really know it was graphic design at the time. But looking back on it, I think the first time I did something that I guess qualifies as design was actually in the Boy Scouts. I was Boy Scout as a kid, and there was this the group I was with needed some kind of patch design. And it's funny because I do a lot of stuff like that now. Like, I actually still volunteer with a scout organization, and I do like patches like this kind of stuff. So I still do it today. And it's sort of funny because as a kid I was doing it, and I didn't even know it was graphic design back then, but I designed a patch for a scout troop, and it just kind of, it wasn't something that was on my radar as something I really wanted to do, but I did it, and that was in high school, I guess, and then I went to college, and I didn't even major in graphic design to start. I was in mechanical engineering, and I sucked at that, and then figured, I can't do that, so let me just be a starving artist, I guess, and I went over to graphic design, and it just kind of fit then. Everything sort of fell into place then, but it took a few years after that first sort of unknown exposure to graphic design to actually get into it as a viable kind of career path.
So you're not starving anymore, I take it, I hope, right?
Not always. Yeah, once in a while. Now things are going.
I'm glad you made it into that direction. How about you, Ryan? Did you start with a pencil in your hand, or was it a computer game, or what was it?
Definitely, yeah, the pencil. My story in middle school, me and my buddy Jeremy, my story is just like Corey's, where there was that other guy that you were just drawing back and forth with all the time. And we started just with copying pages out of comic books that we would have to take home and learn how to draw basically through recreating comic book spreads and stuff like that. And then in high school was when I first got the hint that it could actually be a viable career, because we had some great teachers and some great programs. And I'll date myself a little bit, but in the late 90s, we had the people that we graduated with were the first ones that actually had like a graphic design concentration just coming out of high school. So that was awesome. I mean, we had people that were thinking a little bit ahead of the curve. So we were learning Adobe software, and we got to do our own, yearbook layouts and stuff like that. We really learned like how to do Quark, in high school, doing layouts and stuff like that instead of shipping it off to the yearbook company. Like we did all that stuff in the school, and that's kind of what started it.
Nice. Yeah, late 90s. That must have been just sort of, oldest computer, barely even a dial-up modem back then, huh?
See, yeah. I better not even open up my mouth right now.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, the 40s were a little different, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
I still have a set of rapidograph pins.
Do you? That's awesome.
Of course, Mike and Ryan are like, "What the hell are those?"
I got them, man. I got a set. I had an old school professor in college, and I had to get rapidographs. Those things are dried out by now, I'm sure, but I still got them.
Sweet.
That was like me with photography. I decided to help someone out in the dark room for a couple of weeks, and I'm so glad I never have to do that again because it's just
really
so much labor. I mean, it was fun at the time, but if you had to do that for every single shoot, that's a lot of work going into it instead of, shooting 1,000 photos and picking 5 nice ones. But I guess that's not really the art in that direction. But how about back to you, Ryan, kind of following up, was your family artsy at all, or?
No, my mom loves to say how it skipped a generation. My aunt is her older sister is just fantastic. I mean, she's really way more talented as a straight up realistic drawing than I am. And then my mom, she's like, I can't draw. I don't even care about it. I don't like it at all. So they say it skips a generation, but
nice. Hopefully the balding thing does for me too. I'm still waiting to lose some hair, but we'll see how that goes. But Corey, I know that Mike, he focuses a lot on logos, branding, right? And then how about you? I mean, what was kind of your emphasis?
I'm probably the truest sense of a commercial artist. Like, I mean, all of my stuff is the stuff that I've been doing probably for the last 5 years or so has just been, it's nothing glamorous. It's purely like, instruction manuals, small little, ads and little heroes that go on sites to, to promote things. I mean, it's very uninteresting. It's not interesting stuff at all that I'm doing right now. I mean, lack of a better way of putting it, I've kind of shifted gears a little bit in my career where I kind of, I guess, decided to take a little bit more money to take on more responsibility. But at the same time of taking on the responsibility, I don't get to do a lot of fun stuff anymore. Mm. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You did for many years, right? I mean, you did stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I would be in my 16th year of doing design. Wow. So, I've had those years where I had a ton of fun doing a lot of fun stuff, like, like the late 90s, like early 2000s, stuff like that was definitely a fun time for me. And I would say several years ago, like, you guys all like to make fun of me about, like, doing stuff for Lucas. I mean, that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Nobody's making fun of that, man.
Yeah, no one's making fun of that. We're jealous about that. That's what that's called.
Yeah. So that, so there was, I definitely had some times in my career where it was fun, like that time and stuff. But now I don't do anything exciting.
You'd say
well, I work with motorcycles now, so I guess I can't say it's not exciting. So a lot of stuff I do is with, like, motorsports and stuff like that. So
that's so boring, having to be around motorcycles all the time, racing around tracks.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. To be honest with you, Jens, I enjoy doing the design and stuff like that for them, and it's like, right now I'm designing like for a helmet and stuff like that for some riders, and that's kind of fun. But like, I really enjoy the part that you would probably enjoy more, which is being able to go to events and actually shoot photographs. It's nothing like being 2 feet away from a flat track bike going by you at about 150 miles per hour. So I enjoy shooting photos of that kind of stuff. So
at least you still get to do it too. That's awesome. So Mike, I know you're kind of known on the internet amongst our communities here as sort of the logo guy, the man who brands, so to say. I don't know. Anybody who says logo, they all point at you. So cool. They say if you want something to represent your brand, hit up, Mike or Ember Studios, as they refer to you. And I do the same. I kind of recommend people for different things. I always point, logo into your direction. But what was sort of, the first logo that you did where you said, wow, this is like, this is going to make the company kind of a thing. Like, this is really going to blow this up just, by seeing the logo and knowing that it's going to leave a lasting impression with the customers?
I don't know. I don't think any of the logos I've done I really knew if it was going to be something that really stuck or resonated with people or not. I think it's that's one of the things about the job, that you just, you kind of send stuff out into the wild, and you fingers crossed it works and people get it and people are into it, but you never really know. And there's been, on the flip side of that, there's been times where I've done logos and I had no idea if it would become something big. And then next thing you know, it's, a company like Quidsy, and they're sold to Amazon for $500 million. And it's like, oh shit, I did that logo. I probably got about $200 for that, and they just made $500 million. Oops. I mean, that was in my agency days. I was working for a company when I did that one. So, I mean, I really got a day's pay for it. It was probably like $200 for real, but it was, stuff like that. That's a perfect example actually of the opposite situation, where you do a logo and you think, like, here goes another startup company that's probably going nowhere, and this logo is just going to disappear into the abyss somewhere. And then, they're on the news and they're on, business shows on TV, people talking about Quidsy, and it's a big deal. So that's happened. And then tied into the Quidsy logo, I did the soap.com logo. So same kind of deal. Like, at the time, it was soap.com.
Soap, and the other one was what? Quidsy?
Quidsy, yeah.
How do you spell that?
Quidsi.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I have seen that company before.
Yeah.
And so is that why you're going to regret in about 10 years not doing my logo for free? No, I'm just kidding. That famous artist. I should have had my name on that one. No, I'm totally kidding.
Looking forward to your $500 million, man.
I'm working on it. I'm still at the starving part, so we'll see if I get to the not the. But
gotcha.
It's awesome here sitting with you guys. We have a lot of fun, but I'm sure that there's also times where you really hate it. It can become a drag. I mean, even as a photographer, it sounds like it's always fun, or drawing sounds like it's always fun. Ryan, is there something that you hate to draw?
Something that I hate to draw? Oh gosh, I never thought about that. I don't think there's anything that I really hate to draw, to be honest with you. I mean, every now and again, when I realize that I've lost my chops at something like really hard, like drawing hands, I'll just that's what I'll play with for a week. But when it comes to making stuff in general, what I hate more than anything is indecisive people that ask you to do one thing, and you write them up for it and you do it, and then they pay you, and 2 weeks later they come back with like, hey, can we get this and this and this? And then you're like, put you in that weird spot of like, do you realize we didn't cover this? And things get a little hairy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that's a totally different tangent from what you're asking, but there's nothing I don't like to draw really, but that's the worst part of making anything for money is not clients, but when you realize it's on you to teach your client. So when you realize, okay, I haven't prepped them well enough for these conversations of how this is going to go, that's when it comes back to bite you, and you're like, I should have done that better.
Ouch. And to you guys too. I mean, is that something that might be caused by websites like 99 Design or something, where you get 20, 30 artists painting you 5 samples a piece, and you're getting this huge selection to where people kind of expect to pay $300 to $500 and get that amount of content to choose from? Is that something that you guys all notice? Maybe Corey, you want to answer, and then Mike.
Yeah, I think so. I think clients start getting that. I've noticed it because we'll be in a discussion if I'm meeting with like a freelance client and they bring it up. The second they bring it up, I just kind of find a way to say, I'm probably not the right artist for you. I'm probably not the right fit, and then I'll usually refer. If somebody brings up 99 Designs or Fiverr or something, like, it doesn't matter to me like how much money the job's going to be worth. I usually just refer them over to someone else. Because I automatically know right when they mention those two names, one of those two names, that they kind of have an idea in their head about how the process is going to be and what they're going to be expecting out of me. So, and for how much or how little they're expecting, to give me. So that's what I usually do.
How about you, Mike? You're a 99 Designs hater as well?
No, I don't really hate on it. I mean, I don't worry about it really. I've got a client right now who sends me. I've been doing like a logo a week for this guy lately, and he actually came to me after going to 99 Designs, trying to get the first logo that I did for him done at 99 Designs, and getting a big pile of garbage out of that, and then coming to me to get the actual logo done. So in a weird way, I kind of welcome it. I mean, I actually don't want to see any of my clients go and waste their money on it, but I don't particularly hate when somebody tries it, sees it for what it really is, and then it's got its place. I mean, I can't say that everything that comes out of it is a failure. For some people, maybe it works, and if you can get what you need out of it, that's great, good for you. But I feel like it's I don't know, it's kind of a crapshoot. Like this client that I work with now, this guy did not get good results out of it. It doesn't work for what he wants. He wants a much more hands-on, kind of one-on-one approach. So, for him, he needed this kind of a setup, and it works for him. I do think it's kind of the one big red flag I see with that, and with Fiverr, which I know Ryan wants me to talk about because he knows I hate Fiverr.
No, you hate it. I love when we get on that topic.
I was just gonna ask.
Come on, Mike.
Yeah, Fiverr.
Let it all out. Let it all out.
Fiverr, more so than 99 Designs, has this problem of copyright issues, infringements, ripoffs, people basically stealing existing stuff and trying to post it into a contest, post it into a Fiverr gig. And that's really the bigger thing for me, and that kind of drives me nuts, is that you see this stuff out there that's just completely ripped off. You see it actually, Fiverr even puts it in their ads on Facebook. So you'll see a Facebook ad on Facebook, a Fiverr ad on Facebook, and right there in the ad, there's a logo, and I'll see it and be like, I don't even know. For starters, I don't know why I get so many Fiverr ads on my feed, but that's a whole other discussion. For whatever reason, I see these ads, and then immediately I'm like, I know that logo. That's a ripoff of whatever other logo or stock graphic or something like that. And it's just bullshit. It's such a Fiverr, I would say, is a completely worthless service. 99 Designs isn't as bad, and I think it can have its place in the market. But in general, like I said, I think for most people, it's not always going to be the right solution for what most people need, and that's that more kind of collaborative approach to designing a logo.
Now, what exactly is it that you hate about 99 Designs? At Fiverr, it's the copyright thing. 99 Designs, what's your sort of pet peeve or hate about it?
99 Designs, it's more the there's actually money there. And Fiverr, it's $5. It's like you may as well not even charge. 99 Designs, they actually have sometimes decent money for the projects, but it's spread out across 50, 60, 70 people who enter these contests. So for me, it's more the sort of overly crowdsourced aspect of it, and where there's that kind of like dangling that carrot out in front of a bunch of designers, trying to get them to participate for this possible sum of money, and ultimately only one person gets it. So, and even lately now, I think their new policy is they do this kind of like tiered process to their contest, where there's like a kind of like an initial phase, and then they narrow it down to a smaller group of people and have them do kind of like a second stage design. And even that, to me, it bugs me that there's now that secondary element to it where, let's drag you along through this process and maybe you'll get some money. All right, you made it to stage 2. That's great. Maybe you're a little closer to that money, but ultimately most of those people are still going to get nothing. So I kind of not a fan of that.
Does that go for freelancer.com too then?
Never even looked at it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I checked that out a couple of times. I don't know if any of you guys had experience with it. I just kind of signed on to it to check it out, but it's sort of similar. I mean, it's an individual bidding process. Basically, you bid, lowest bidder, and skills they can choose, by your resume and things like that. But it seems like it's all driving the prices down. You know what I mean? The quality's going down and the prices too. But it gives people these wrong expectations that, they can pay, $50-$60 and get themselves a slamming logo that's going to, just brand their company and take it to the next level. So I think it's just all going to hurt the industry at some point. But, one of the things that I struggle with as a photographer when I come up with ideas is to be original and to come up with something that has not been done before. And just this last weekend, I was helping a friend actually looking at different logo ideas that included robots. And so, we were just talking, hadn't looked at anything yet. And so I was like, why don't you take an old school microphone and use that as the head, and then we'll do this here. And then, I can go on Google and go microphone robot, and bam, there's the robot I just sketched out, So at what point do you guys think that your subconscious, is taking in all these images, all these ads that you're getting slammed with on a daily basis. At which point, is it your idea or is it someone else's idea that you have, buried in your subconscious and are bringing out as you're drawing? Kind of start with Mike, kind of go around. Everybody can answer that one.
Yeah, it's funny that there's that style element of stuff where we're all kind of exposed to what's current, what's kind of like the trendy styles for things, and a lot of times you can have that concept like a microphone robot kind of thing, and then you apply the current trendy styles to it, and you end up with something that somebody else has already done, especially recently. It's tough to work outside of that box, and I think it's there's kind of two approaches, I guess, to avoiding those kind of issues. And one is just you've always got to focus on your own thing, do your own style, draw your inspiration from places, but at the end of the day, it's still got to be you doing your version of that. The idea, the concept may be out there, maybe somebody's already done it, but you can still do something that's your vision for that, your style, your approach to a certain concept or a certain problem. The other side of it is to not get too caught up, I think, in current trends and stuff too, because I watch this stuff, especially probably since I don't know, last 5-6 years or so. I've noticed these kind of waves of trends coming and going, and it definitely does go out as fast as it comes in. So, it's hard to not latch onto that because clients are always asking for that. They'll say, oh, I saw this cool thing on Behance or on Dribbble or on whatever. And it's that cool, trendy look that people are doing. 6 years ago, it was the glossy Apple button kind of style of things, and that's gone. Nobody's doing that now. So back then, clients were saying, give me the glossy look. And then, a few years later, nobody wants that. It doesn't look good. So it's that kind of thing. Like, you're going to be asked to do that stuff. You're always going to be asked to do whatever the trend is, whatever the current look is, but you got to, just like we were talking before about educating clients, I think it's another component of educating your client on, all right, that looks cool now, but what I want to do is something that's more of a kind of timeless style, a more classic kind of look, and it's going to hold up textures more. And that's kind of the approach you got to take with that stuff.
Maybe you guys can add too, as you're answering this, at which point does it become a copy? So some people say, you have to change something 60% in order for it to not be a copyright infringement. So does that mean if I change 60% of the color, is that different? Does it mean 60% of the lines? What do you guys, you can kind of add to that.
Why are you asking? Why are you asking?
Why am I asking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I only ask you that because it's like I don't think you should be worried about that, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it is, because what if somebody, for example, takes something that I did and they, inverse the color. That means they changed 100% of the color. Do I have a viable lawsuit against them stealing my artwork?
Okay,
so I'm
I understand you
from
now.
my perspective.
Got it. I thought you were like, how much
from
do
the
I have
thievery side?
I have to change this thing, and I'm like,
I got 99 designs, but
I'm slow. I wasn't ready for this. I'm catching up.
It's all good. And X. I'm just kidding. No, Ryan, what do you think? And kind of with the copying, and then maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Well, I don't know. I think Mike has had more experience with getting ripped off than I have. I have yet to have anything serious happen where I've had to go figure something out. The worst thing that happened to me was somebody taking my stuff and reposting it as theirs on Instagram without permission. I blocked them. They blocked me. There wasn't much recourse. I told Instagram about it, and I really don't know what happened because I stopped following up. So that wasn't even changes. That was just a wholesale copy-paste. That's the worst that's happened to me, and it's only happened once, so I'm not really good for it.
And in general, with originality, what do you have difficulty sometimes with coming up with something, and then going either on the internet or somewhere else and going, crap, someone already did that exact thing?
Everything Mike said was right on. I mean, and I'm also doing a lot less logo stuff these days, and kind of getting gradually more towards the art side, and kind of, even though some of that stuff then gets digitized, and I do vector artwork for that, it's not as much for clients. But I think the most important thing is to, instead of getting inspiration from what's on Instagram, if you look at hashtag design or hashtag vintage this or that, I think is to go back to the things that you really like. I mean, it's okay to get an inspiration for if you got a robot logo, like maybe spend a little bit of time and go read a sci-fi novel. Like, I think you're going to come, stuff is going to start swimming around in your head that's not somebody else's logo, but like the theory of some, read a chapter of an Isaac Asimov novel just for the hell of it, and then see what starts swimming around in your head if you're going to do something about robots. I think you're better inspiration from other places than looking at other logos that already exist.
That's a good point. Good point for sure. Corey, you doing all right over there?
I'm doing good.
All
yeah,
right,
what's interesting is, I don't know if any of you, like Mike or Ryan has seen this, but one of the things I've noticed, like me and first of all, I'll answer the question. When it comes to like the copyright stuff and 60%, like I'm kind of like Ryan. I've kind of never had to really worry about it all too much, and I think when it comes down to that kind of stuff, I've always erred on the side of, well, we like that style. If we like that style, let's just reshoot whatever it is that we're doing, or let's just recreate whatever it is in that style. So that's always been kind of my rule of thumb throughout my career. Just my mentors kind of drilled that into my head. So it's basically there's never enough. You can never have the excuse that you didn't have enough time to shoot something or recreate it. Well, if that's the case, well, stay up all night and do it then.
Yeah.
Tough shit.
Get that
You're a
shit
designer.
done.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's how my career has been. Those are the kind of people. So
Yeah, in the end, we get to draw and take photos, so we can't bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's kind of funny though, but on the note of copyright stuff that I've kind of noticed I don't know if this is the case. I don't know. Maybe you guys could elaborate on this. If you guys have seen this, is that I've found that younger designers seem to be they seem to have the tendency to do this more, to where they copy something and try to push that boundary of how far I can copy something, and then I could use it. And one of the things that I've noticed that seems to tie in with that is their actual background on art history and what they actually know about the classics and stuff like that. So where it almost seems to me that the people that will do that and push that boundary don't have that foundation to kind of fall back on, to try to, kind of like how Ryan's saying, go back to an old book and read something to try to get inspiration that way or something like that. I don't know. Just throwing that question out there. Curious if you guys have seen that. It's kind of something I've noticed. I don't know.
Yeah, it is I hate to generalize, but to be honest, the trend does seem to be younger people tend to make that mistake. And I don't know if it's, there's definitely could be something, Corey, to the background and the understanding of art history and the masters and all that kind of stuff. And then there's also, I think is it just that they're young and they're making that kind of early mistake early in their career that just, they don't know any better kind of thing. I'm not sure if it's a combination of that, but for whatever it's worth, I've definitely noticed that it's, there was a guy just this week I saw on Instagram, he ripped off a pretty popular logo, and you can see in the guy's profile, he puts that he's 17. So he's a young guy. In those kind of cases, I kind of chalk it up to he just doesn't know any better. He's 17. He hasn't even gone to college or been exposed to art school or anything like that. So he wouldn't even necessarily be exposed in any significant way to anybody telling him really that, that's not what you do. That's not how this works. So I think age is a factor for sure. But at the same time, you can just as easily find, maybe not just as easily, but you still will find people who are my age and older than me who rip stuff off and just think that it's okay to do too. So there's definitely another component somewhere in there too that I just don't know what it is that makes someone think that I can just take this piece of work as it is and just wholesale rip it off.
And just to kind of be the devil's advocate, not really, but you kind of said it with the younger kids. They probably are thinking, I got to prove something. I got to make myself stand out somehow. Maybe I can somehow get by taking this really cool thing that's popular and just tweaking it to the extent where I get away with it. And then there's also kind of the people who actually were educated in art and design versus the people who were maybe just naturally artistic and happen to take up, this as a profession. Who knows why? They drew some painting, someone saw it, and they got a job. Let's just say that. But I guess it's difficult to judge a lot of the time. Even at that point, I feel like it goes back to that original question. Like, are they trying to rip something off, or is that something that they saw and then now they're putting the pen to paper, and that's just kind of what comes out? I know when you can tell, obviously, but sometimes I've seen things where kind of, I'll show you guys a second one, but one that where I saw it, I was just kind of like, I've seen this before. What is it? And the person swears on their life they did not copy it, but it looked like it. What do you think, Ryan?
I think as far as it goes with kids, I mean, some of it's the times we're living in. Like I learned, some of my early layouts from stuff I was doing in high school. You go back and look at it now and be like, oh, you basically redrew the back of a Grateful Dead album cover, put it on an envelope, and called it letterhead. And it's like, the difference is I didn't share it with the world, and now that's so easy for every kid to do that it's like, he didn't try to sell it as his own necessarily, but maybe that is what Corey's seeing. Like, hey, look what I made. You're like, no, all of Earth knows you pretty much didn't do that. So
yeah,
some of it, and the durability of.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, Ryan. Go ahead.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, and one of the things that I should have been more clear about is it's not so much about kids like in high school and stuff like that, because I think it's great if younger kids in high school that want to be designers or getting into design. I think it's cool that they're trying to imitate designs that they see and stuff around them. But I think more of what I'm talking about is kids that you'll see in college and then coming out and starting off. That's what I've been noticing. So I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of my bad luck.
Here's one example of this right here. So this is a logo of a company that I won't name right now, but what's the first thing you think of when you see this logo? That's another one that looks similar to it. Anyone?
E-Trade?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is not E-Trade, but the minute I saw this, I go, dude, you copied the E-Trade logo, and it's similar business, similar everything. He swears to God he had never seen the E-Trade logo. And I was just like, you had to have. I mean, that's where the whole subconscious, to me, kind of comes into play. But, I just think that's different.
Didn't they do the commercials with the talking babies? Everybody's seen that.
They were all over the place. That's what I'm saying. But it could be like driving down the freeway. It could be on some billboard, and you just drive by, look over, and then kind of keep going. Don't really realize it, I guess.
But even then, still, there's your due diligence as a designer is to do the research to find that stuff, especially within the same industry. There's no excuse for not looking that up and finding that out. Part of every job, part of my fee in logo design, and I tell this to every client, is, part of what I do is not just on paper or on screen, but it's the research component of it. And it's finding out about your business and what you do and what makes your business unique, and also who your competitors are, what their logos look like, so we don't step on anything that they've done for that exact reason. You don't want to do something that your competitors already using. So that's just,
absolutely.
If it's a rip off, that's one thing. If it's just negligence and not doing the research, that's probably equally as bad, really, to me. And it's just another form of, it's not a rip off, but it's still just, for lack of a better word, it's just laziness or stupidity.
Now, there's a really interesting lawsuit going on right now, and this particular artist is being sued for $500,000. And the reason he's being sued is that he sold a photograph and the full rights to it exclusively. He kept the right to use it for portfolio purposes, but he sold it to a third party. That third party then resold the image, and it was used in a Taiwanese hardcore porn website or something like that. And so the model that's in the original image is suing the original photographer for defamation. And what do you guys think? Is that something that you fear? Like, say you draw a logo and that you sell that logo, and then it ends up in a place where you never thought it would, and that somehow coming back to you. Where do you think that case should land?
If you don't mind me asking, what's this guy's name? Because I think I've heard of this case before.
I don't have his name. I can look it up again. I just read it the other day again, and I don't know his name exactly.
Yeah, if it's the case I'm thinking of, I know that case was recently settled. I think it sounds like the same exact circumstances.
It was like $300K or something like that.
Something big, yeah.
To the model?
Oh no, that was the original, I think, or I don't know what the original suit.
Yeah, that was the original suit. I think they ended up settling outside of court.
Yeah, I don't think that they disclosed the settlement.
Yeah.
If it's this case, or if it's not this case, it's a very similar case to the one I heard of. It was a stock photo shoot, and and there's a model release in place and all that kind of stuff. And I had this conversation actually with some other photographers that, if I was doing stock photography, I work in stock illustration, so no models, no worrying about model releases, property releases, that kind of thing. But if I was a photographer, my comment on this, I'll make the same comment here, was just that I don't think the standard model release for places like Shutterstock and iStock and a lot of the stock photo houses really protects photographers enough. And I would actually ask, and other people do this actually, this isn't totally an original idea. Some photographers do this. They have their own model release. They have a much more detailed outline of, look, these photos are going on the internet. The internet is kind of a shitty place sometimes, and people take photos and use them for sometimes not very cool things. Like, if you're doing a sexy pose and, this ends up on the cover of a DVD, it can happen. Like, not maybe that explicit in the model release because it'll scare off all your models, but, basically giving themselves a lot more protections and a lot more kind of plain English explanations of what could happen. Like, this is where these images are going, just so you understand, sign it, and then they actually have the model hold the release in front of them, and they take a picture of them holding the release, so they've got every angle of this thing covered. That was my comment on it. I think this guy, again, if it's the same case that I've heard of, this guy used a standard Shutterstock or iStock, whatever model release, and I think those are not sufficient enough. And again, if I was a photographer, I would definitely have my own model release and kind of write my own contract with models to really fully protect myself.
I agree. Mine's 8 pages long. It might seem over the top, but I have them sit there. I have them read it. I have them initial every single page. I have them sign it in the back. Everything, full address. If they don't agree, then there's no shoot. And this mainly goes for like the trade for print and stuff like that, which I don't do much anymore. But at the time, I really wanted to make sure that, 10 years down the line, I don't have somebody knocking on my door going, let me get that $10K for that one photo that ended up going somewhere, or so. But
right.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And, you kind of brought up like with the internet and where the art's going, and there's another thing happening right now, and that's actually going all the way up to the Supreme Court. And this is involves images in general, photos or digital art. But it's about orphaned art on the internet. And, when you say Mike posts something and, then Ryan reposts it, Corey, it goes through me, I email it to a friend, it goes here or there. And, by the 20th time, obviously all the metadata's gone. Someone might have stripped it along the way, reconverted it. And now it's on Google Images when I type in cat. What's the responsibility of the user who, maybe posts that along with their Twitter image or pulls it down and uses it to advertise something? I mean, at which point does, I guess, a piece of artwork become sort of a freebie that's floating around on the internet? And this is something that's going to be voted on pretty soon, but hasn't been yet. So I'd like to hear all you guys' opinion. Corey, you want to start?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's something there where Google needs to kind of, I'm using Google Images because I think that's what most people would probably use, needs to educate people. Like, because for me, I instantly, whenever I have somebody like a new designer or somebody like that comes in and they'll think they can pull from Google, I always say, you know what? You can never under any circumstance are you ever to pull from Google, because those aren't your photos.
Yeah.
It's just not yours. You don't know where they came from. You don't have the rights, just downright, plain and simple. So, I mean, I guess when it comes to that kind of stuff, I never see, unless I'm messing around with friends or something and we're sending something back and forth, like money bags over up there. I sent a picture of, Scrooge McDuck to him. And then, but no, I see it as it's never okay to use those images on Google.
So when in doubt, get that shit out. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, when in doubt, don't go there at all.
Do you guys agree with that? Or, is there some sort of a time when it's okay to use those?
I think it's kind of like what Mike said before with the with doing the research. When it's part of what you're paying for. When somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I need this pamphlet made," and if you go pulling stuff from Google Images, it could come back on them. That's ridiculous.
I guess I should have kind of clarified. I mean, I'm not talking in this sense about us as professionals. I mean, just kind of like the average user. Like if somebody Joe Schmo goes on the internet and he wants to put his car wants to advertise his car or something like that on Craigslist, and he ends up using someone's photo, but they didn't want it used for that. So I mean, for someone like that, do you think that they should be held accountable for using someone else's artwork?
They could, yeah. I think in some cases, I mean, if you're gonna slam a guy has a blog and he posts a photo on his blog and he's got 30 people who read his blog and he gets hit by a photographer, like he rips off Chase Jarvis or some like big hotshot photographer and gets slammed with, and I'm not saying Chase would even do this, that I'm just throwing like a big name out there. He gets hit with like a $10,000 bill or something like that for infringement. I think that's excessive, but at the same time, you can't just kind of ignore that stuff. And I don't know what the solution is, but maybe part of it is education. Part of it is, the word just spreading more. And I think the word is spreading more, that people, your everyday average user is getting a little bit more savvy with the internet and getting a little bit more understanding. Stuff on the internet isn't always all free. Whatever side of the recording industry argument you're on for music piracy and that kind of stuff, at the end of the day, it actually has been good for educating the general public on copyright and on usage and rights and things like that. So I think over time it's going to become less and less of an issue, I hope, and I think it already is in some ways. But for now, I don't know what the solution is. I hate to see Joe average blogger get slammed with some huge bill. Getty does it. That's an even better example than naming a specific photographer. It would be, Getty is notorious for crawling the web and finding people using their images and they're not licensed images, and you get exactly that. In some cases, a $10,000 settlement letter. And you could just be, you could be a kid, you could be a blogger, you could be whoever, and you get this scary, huge settlement notice in the mail. It's kind of, I don't think that's the solution. I don't think that's, we shouldn't be frightening people to educate them on this. But again, I don't know what a better solution is, really.
Yeah, true. Brian, does that change your answer at all?
Not really. I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about it or read about the issue, so I don't really know that much about it. I mean, I wonder what the same was. I put a guitar pedal on Craigslist, for example. Didn't have time to take a picture of it. I went and found the picture of it from the manufacturer's website, or some other guy that took a picture of the same pedal. Like, does every other citizen that if he just happens to browse Craigslist and find the picture of the guitar pedal, does then, Joe Blow number 1 get to sue Joe Blow number 2? I mean, I don't know how that stuff would work, but
I wonder a lot, because just, recently, like, we'll take, let's say, the blab owl and do something funny with it, or we take the meerkat, and I know that, I've altered the meerkat a couple times. I actually asked Neve, and he said it was okay, but it wasn't like a written thing or anything for Funky Fairy, on shirts and stuff. And there's also a meerkat, peeing on a Periscope sign, and so these are little funny things that are hilarious, but in the end, an artist, I suppose, could claim the copyright infringement on that, but I guess it's kind of I guess up to the artists themselves at that point. But now for example, I got this computer here for about $1,000, and this thing's a killer machine that I put together myself. You guys are probably working on Apples and Retina displays, 4K. You know what I mean? I mean, just the technology nowadays is immense. The way it's kind of growing and increasing. Do you see that helping or hurting us as artists? Any one of you guys want to start? Corey, hanging in there? Good. I like it.
I'm hanging. I'm hanging in there. I'm all right. So you're talking, does this technology hurt or help the art? Is that the question?
I think it's making it easier for anybody to draw. I know with the new Illustrator that came out, I don't know if it was the CC 2015 or 2014 release, but the new tool that's in there makes it extremely easy to vectorize pretty much anything. So do you think that's going to hurt the industry, or do you think that's just going to spark more creative minds?
I think I don't think it's going to hurt anything, because ultimately in the end I think it comes down, like, you'll always be able to tell how good somebody is just that raw talent of being able to draw stuff like that. I mean, I'm using Illustrator as an example because, I mean, it's great. You can have all of these features in Illustrator that can do things for you. But if you don't know how to draw naturally, I think you can't really make all those cool things that you can in Illustrator. You know, if you don't have the talent to be able to see it in your head, to be able to see where shading would go or how the lighting's going to fall on something, like, you know, if you don't have that knowledge to make it look proper, no computer program is going to be able to do that for you.
True.
At least that's how I feel. I think as technology gets better, it's still always going to be the same. It's just a tool, because no one will be able to make the artwork that Ryan makes unless they have an artistic mind and be able to see it, you know, or the stuff that I would make or that Mike makes. You know, there's some things where it's just whether or not you have it or you don't, and it's here in your head. Yeah. I think.
Mike, what do you think? Kind of adding on to that, but you know, it's basically, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be the best artist by doing this, but you could still be an artist that maybe you charge, let's say, $500-$600 for a logo, and this guy who doesn't really know how to draw by hand or, learned it later charges $300 for something that's, maybe, let's say 70% as good as something you did. They're still going to be able to take a chunk of the industry that way. So I guess, you don't see that hurting anyone?
I'm not too worried about it. It's, I mentioned before, a big part of what I do is the stuff that's not on screen or on paper. I think a lot of what brings people to me is that component of it. I mean, the first thing people see, of course, is my work, and that, they make the judgment that they think I'm the right guy for the job or not. But secondary to that, and the second immediate step in the process really is the research and the, finding a way to make something that fits the business, fits the client, something that they really like and they want, is the right solution for them. And that's something that, I don't really have to compete that much on that aspect of it. And I think that helps me and helps my business. I can kind of differentiate myself a little bit in that way from someone who just doesn't do that or doesn't know to do that. That's not part of their process. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that. There may be a guy who does charge half what I charge and goes through the same whole process and can get the same kind of result. But I don't know. So far, I haven't had that much of an issue with it because I just feel like, I've gotten enough feedback from my clients to lead me to believe that what I do and how I do it is worth paying a little bit more than the cheaper guy. So however it's worked for me. And I'm just going to kind of keep riding that until I hear otherwise from my clients, I guess.
Yeah. Still got flames going and it's working for you, man. Like it. So I got two more questions for you guys, and then we'll kind of maybe open it up, see if anybody wants to hop in and ask any questions, or from the side too. But one of them is, who is your biggest inspiration at the moment as far as design or art in general? If you can, Mike, and then we'll just kind of go around.
That's a tricky one. I follow a lot of people who do stuff that I don't do, and so it's kind of weird. Like, I think I'd rattle off a list of cool logo designers and graphic designers, but lately I feel like I follow a lot of people who do stuff that is kind of, it's related, it's artistic, it's graphic, but it's kind of outside of my field. Like, one guy in particular is a guy named John Fellows, and he does block prints, and he does these really cool, they're almost kind of like nautical looking images. It's like a, sort of a pirate looking guy, a burly sailor guy carrying a ship in a bottle. And I'm going to describe it completely and undersell it for what it is, but it's like this ridiculously cool image. The thing is the process that he actually carves the image into a linoleum block, inks it up, puts paper on it, and rolls it out and prints it that way. And it's just, there you go. Yeah, it's that guy. It's just really, really cool stuff. And it's, again, miles away from what I do in a way that I could never do anything. And he's just freaking badass at it. But, for whatever reason, stuff like that inspires me. And, I don't know if I can really, I'd love to say I can take some of that inspiration back to what I do. The reality is what I do is very corporate and very straight, and it's not as cool as this stuff. But I don't know. I think occasionally there could just be like a certain coloring or just like a line weight, something like that, and it just might spark something in my head. Like, let me beef up some of these lines in this logo, and maybe it makes it look a little better. There could be little things I draw from his stuff, but just in general, just as like a fun thing to look at. I love his stuff.
Yeah, that's
probably cool. Yeah, probably more related to the stuff I do is there's a guy named Josh Warren. He's more of a graphic guy. He's got he puts stuff up on Cotton Bureau. That's the shirt I'm wearing right. This isn't one of his shirts, but Cotton Bureau is the company. He's got a cool shirt up on Cotton Bureau right now. He does more like minimalist kind of graphics, and it's cool stuff. So it's another guy I like right now.
How about you, Ryan? Anybody that stands out? Could be could be like historic too. It doesn't have to be from now, but anyone in particular?
I recently dug back out a book that I've had since high school of Piet Mondrian, the Dutch guy that's done all the, you guys have seen the primary color stuff, but all his rectangle work is absolutely fantastic, and it seems really simple when you look at it at first, but going back and rereading his entire process of how he got there and how detailed and well thought out he went from here to here to here to got to the stuff that's in the museums. So that's him at the end of his process, but there's stuff all in between that come through from reading his biography and stuff like that. That's not that I'm trying to create artwork like that, but I'm in a place right now of kind of taking the work that I did through the 100-day project and taking things out and taking away and trying to create some more minimal artwork and layouts and things like that. So rereading that like 2 weeks ago was a good reminder.
Before we get to you, Corey, just real quick, a quick little story I want to share. I was in Germany last November, and there was an artist over there who I can't remember his name now. I actually met him briefly, but he basically ended up having a brain tumor, and so he was so weak that he was not able to pick up the brush anymore. And his paintings were selling for $1,000, but he was so weak that he just couldn't draw anymore. And so his wife gave him a little digital camera. And, this is just from you saying taking the pieces out, but basically gave him a little digital camera, and all he could do is crawl around the yard on his hands and knees. And, his goal was basically to put together a photo album of flowers just for his wife, just as like a nice thing that he could do. And someone ended up coming over, and they go, "Why don't you just take a little chunk or, a piece of it and blow that up and see what happens?" He's like, "No, you have to leave the photo. This is how I framed it." And he finally did just take a little segment out of it and blew it up. And what happened was it just showed all these different, kind of like these color combinations and, something that you wouldn't have expected. And now he has all these different art series about sort of how when the flowers decay and sort of, going back into the ground and what the beauty you can find in that. But it's just crazy where inspiration, can come from sometimes. But Corey, who's your favorite artist?
Favorite artist, I'd have to say right now, the guy that I like, I've been following for a little bit. His name is Greg Simpkins. He goes by Crayola, and he's a painter. Actually started off as a graffiti guy. If you guys have heard of like the CBS crew, I love his stuff. He's my favorite. I mean, and the funny thing is he's a painter, so it's not related to design or anything, but I mean, his stuff is almost like design sometimes when you look at it. I mean, his work is amazing.
Cool.
Very detailed.
Yeah. So there's guys like him. I mean, I love guys like him, like Mike Giant.
Oh my gosh, I have his book like next to my bed.
Rebel 8.
Yep.
Guys like that. I mean, there's a bunch of people that I see as an influence. I don't think there's just one, because I like to look at them all, and there's something I take from each one of them, and it's, I don't know. I'm trying to think who else. Like, Alex Pardee is another guy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Audrey Kawasaki. She's super cool. Check her out. A really cool artist.
Motorcycles, right? Just kidding.
No. These people are nowhere even in. Nowhere even. But yeah, those are like some of the artists that I'm into. I mean, I can have a list of like 20 or 30 that inspire me, that I look at just on any given week. I'll look at all 30 of them. I mean, it's just my thing. But nice. And on top of that, it's like some of the other people, not just artists, but there's like athletes that do stuff that inspire me. Like there's one guy his name is Killian I always mess up how you say his last name, Journet, but he's like an ultra guy who he runs in Europe, and he just runs across the mountain ranges and stuff like that. And like that kind of stuff to me is just like awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just inspires me because it just takes my mind somewhere else. And I feel like for me, when I get inspired, I have to do that. I have to kind of just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it be at the dump or somewhere, I mean, as long as my mind is somewhere else, I can draw from something. And that's what a lot of the artists that I follow do. So.
Yeah, I just met another photographer on here on Blab who is out of Peru, and he showed me this photo. I'll show you guys real quick, but it just kind of like reinvigorated me to want to get to this place somehow. First of all, and it's basically there's these huge salt flats in Peru, and a lot of photographers have covered it. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. I'll show you, but what it basically does is create these insane reflections. And it looks like just kind of out of this world, and it's just a very kind of 1 inch thin layer of water across these pure white salt flats, and you get these kind of reflections throughout it where you could just do some really cool artwork out of it. And those are the kind of things where I look at it and I just I gotta get there somehow, but I think that was a really kind of cool and interesting question to ask you guys, because I felt like everybody there, really had something very different as far as their inspiration, going from sort of the modern, into the sort of more detailed kind of characters, and everyone's kind of on a different level. But then at the same time, we do still have to fit the styles, of the present day and kind of mold ourselves to what the customer wants. We can't always draw what we want by ourselves, especially with the 100-day project. But just to kind of wrap this up, we'll end it with a nice, happy question. What's the worst, most embarrassing moment you've ever had as an artist? Like a logo that you printed onto the wrong product and then handed back to your customer, or something like that. I know that at the studio that I recently worked at, the owner printed all the Carpinteria High School labels onto the Santa Barbara High School, and the Santa Barbara High School mascot onto the other one, and then sent out every football picture to all the students. So, things like that can happen. That's why you don't let a 98-year-old man handle the printer. But have you guys had any experiences like that?
No, my career has been flawless.
Nice.
I wish. Yeah.
You too?
Now, the story, I think I told Corey and Ryan this story, and I'll tell it again. I think I was on one of Jamie's blabs and probably told this story, but a bunch of years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, I was my last full-time job. I was doing a pocket calendar layout. It was like a credit card size calendar, lenticular on one side, so it was kind of expensive to print, and then the back was just a calendar layout. And I still don't know how or why I didn't check it enough, and this is what actually has led me to being really anal at proofreading, like double checking everything, triple checking it. I misspelled December on the calendar, and it went out like that, and it was just one of those things. It was like there was only 12 words on the whole thing, and I misspelled one of them, and and again, it was lenticular, that kind of 3D image thing on the front, so it wasn't like a cheap thing to reprint. It was pretty costly, and my employer was not happy about it, but generous enough to let me keep my job after that one, and cost him a ton, I'm sure, to get them reprinted, but I'll never forget that one. I still have one. It's in the basement in a box. I keep that because that's my reminder. Triple check everything.
We lost your audio, Yan.
Really?
Nah, it's out.
Bummer. Mine is probably going back through. I just went back through some drawers here recently and found some things that were probably about 12 or 13 years old, and just seeing how much I've changed. And I think one of the first things I did, it was like a little promo piece for who, I can't even remember, but just, basic type choices and getting fancy with the first, 3D in Photoshop stuff that could be done. I was like, yeah, check this out. Okay, I've never seen anything like this before. And it's just like, ooh, you'd like to think you're making something timeless when you first spit it out, but you look at it a little later and you're like, nope, this ain't never going to see the light of day.
Is it back?
Yep, you're back.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's painful for sure.
Yeah, it was like a pie chart that then I got turned into 3D stuff because that was part of their logo or whatever, and I took it and 3D'd it and gave them some newfangled font for whatever was 2003, 2002 was going on, and
The little lens flare on there.
not great. Oh, I avoided that, thank goodness. But
we'd have had to taken away your Photoshop license.
Not for that one.
Corey's going to tell us that this is all how Jabba the Hutt came about.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, come on, he's not that old.
No, I'm saying...
No, I would have to say my worst one is we used to joke around when we would create stuff. It was like back when Flash was like a big deal. And people were creating stuff in Shockwave and all that. And so we had this kid's game thing, and you had to answer the questions, and then and they'd give you the message. Well, when we were developing it, we were fucking around, and so just for each other, when we had tested, we'd put things like "you suck" and all this other crap. Well,
I know where this is going.
Yeah, so this is an epic one because we've all had the misspelling on the business card, but this was the worst one I think I've had, where we did it, and my buddy Doug, he was the other guy testing, and so I put something in there that said, "You suck, Doug, F you," and somehow he forgot to take that out, and we went to demo testing for the client came in and stuff like that, and it somehow glitched, or it was still there. The guy got a big ass fucking monitor.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh man. Corey wins.
And I mean, let me just tell you what it's like to sit there and see that come up, right? When you're sitting in the meeting.
Oh my gosh.
You're just like, I mean, your heart is your fucking toes.
Your balls drop the second time.
And then
what happened?
Yeah, the fact that Doug was actually leading the demonstration when this was going on. So, it just looked really bad. And, luckily the guy had a really good sense of humor. Of course, my boss didn't have a very good sense of humor, but the guy had a really good sense of humor. I mean, he really did. He was like, he's all, "That's damn good." He's all, we might need to. He said something along the lines of making another version of the game. But that was by far the biggest fuck up I think to date. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm the host. I never fuck up. So I'll share one of mine too. I was working at a studio. This is actually one of the first studios I ever worked at, and I trained myself in photography. And this was a portrait studio, and I had mainly done architectural stuff. And I never really metered my light. I just metered either through the camera or I just shot a couple sample shots. And so basically, he hands me the light meter. It goes, can you measure that to 11, 16, and 8 or something like that? And those are f-stops for anyone who doesn't know, basically the amount of light that the lens lets in. But I had no idea what I was doing, and neither did I know that you're supposed to match, some of those numbers up with what's on the camera as well. And so basically I shot about 350 senior students 4 stops too low. And so ended up getting back and unloading all of the prints or all of the images onto the computer, and they were basically all completely dark to the point where I had to crank the exposure up in Lightroom almost to 100% upwards in order to even recognize the kid's face. And it's not like you can reshoot the kids, so I got to spend a nice 3 extra days in the office working for free that time. But it all happens, and I guess never do that again. Probably the best learning experience I had out of that. But exactly. I really want to thank you guys for helping me with this and answering some questions and kind of getting this going, because I really want art to be represented on this platform as well, not just social media and business and stuff like that. So with us and a couple other people, I think it's really Jamie, myself, and maybe 1 or 2 other people that are doing anything with art on here. And I think it's important. It's part of our culture. It's always going to be there. And that's kind of my goal with this, is to introduce some of the artists and things on this platform here, which I think is great for it. On Meerkat, this would have been boring to do, but here it's really interesting and a great conversation. So just want to thank you guys. And I recorded all this. I'll have the recording up. I'm going to copyright it, so if you guys use it, I will sue you. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, dude, thanks, guys. And thank you guys for watching. If anybody has any questions, I'll kind of just leave it open for a minute. I know a lot of people kind of came in and went out and stuff like that. So I guess it's really only a couple people left at the moment. But we did have up to 15 at one point. So that's pretty good. 15 people not looking at social media and branding for one night. So I think that's a win for me and you guys, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hopefully my answers tonight were somewhat coherent because
they were.
just been
You were spot on, man.
Yeah, and no name dropping either. I mean, I was just